I walked into a room last week with great purpose and intention. I stood there for a full 10 seconds and then I left. I came back with a snack instead of whatever it was I went for. And honestly, the snack was probably the better outcome. And today, I want to talk about the brain, specifically my brain at 68, which is fascinating, occasionally frustrating, and surprisingly adaptable. That what I have decided to stop being embarrassing about. And here's something that I've noticed. When I forget something, a name or a word or why I'm standing somewhere, my first response isn't curiosity, it is shame. That little internal voice that says, see, you're slipping. Sometimes it's wrong. Better not mention it. And I think a lot of us are carrying that sort of quietly because there is this cultural story about what it means when your memory changes. And that story goes sort of one direction, a very scary direction. And so every small slip gets loaded with much more weight than it actually deserves. The moment at dinner when a name disappears mid sentence and you sort of do that thing, where you're just sort of trail off in a gesture and hope the other person fills it in. So you don't have to say, I cannot for the life of me remember the name of the person I've known for 20 years. Her name is Linda. I knew it was Linda the whole time. She just had to wait for my brain to find the filing cabinet where it was. But the filing cabinet is very large and it has been filling up for more than 6 decades. A small organizational delay is understandable. And here is what I actually know now that I wish I had known maybe 20 years ago. The brain at 60 is quite different. It's not broken, it's different. Processing speed has changed. Yes, that is true. The quick retrieval that used to sort of be automatic sometimes takes a beat longer. That is very real, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But here's what also changes, and this is the part that almost never gets quite talked about, is that wisdom comes along, pattern recognition, emotional regulation, the ability to read a room and know something immediately, to know what actually matters and what doesn't. Researchers call it crystallized intelligence. I love that. It peaks in your 60s and 70s, but it is built from everything that you have experienced, everything that you've navigated, every room that you've read, every relationship that you have figured out, every disaster you've survived and learned from. And here is what else research tells us. The older brain is actually better at certain things, better at seeing the big picture, better at regulating emotion under pressure, better at knowing when not to react, and better at sitting with complexity without needing to resolve it immediately. My brain at 60 is slower to recall Linda's name, but it is faster at knowing whether Linda is worth worrying about. That feels like a completely fair trade. Let me tell you some of the things my brain does now that it didn't do before. I walk in a room without a purpose. This is new. At 40, I always had a purpose. Now, I occasionally arrive at a destination and just sort of look around like I'm window shopping in my own house. And I used to find this alarming. Now, I find it almost relaxing. I'm in the kitchen. I don't know why. I might as well get some water. It worked out. My brain has also developed a very strong opinion about which conversations are worth having. At 40, I could sit in a meeting for 2 hours and pay careful attention to all of it. At 60, my brain decides about 15 minutes in whether this is essential information or ambient noise, and it filters accordingly. Some would call this selective attention. I call it prioritization. I have also noticed that I lose words, not all the words themselves, but just the address. I know the word exists. I can feel the shape of it. I can describe it perfectly. I just cannot, in that particular moment, locate it. It usually shows up later. Actually, it always shows up later, and usually at 3 a.m. Not particularly helpful, but I have developed systems. I write things down, not because I'm losing my mind, but because I have decided that my brain has better things to do than to hold a grocery list. I put things that I cannot forget directly in front of the door, and not near the door, but in front of it, where I will walk into them if necessary. I have a notes app that I love deeply, and I talk to it constantly. It remembers everything I tell it, thank goodness. Unlike my filing cabinet, I have returned to my car twice to make sure it was locked. It was, both times, and I have made peace with the fact that the checking is just part of the process now. It's not a malfunction, it's just an operating update for me. What I've stopped doing is sort of apologizing for it, because here's the truth that my brain has been running a very complex operation for 68 years. And it has held the grief and joy of decision making, of creativity and relationships, a staggering amount of information about people and places and systems, and the entire plot of every show I've watched since 1970. It has navigated careers and crisis and conversations that require every bit of emotional intelligence that it had. It has been resilient in ways I often didn't give it credit for. And it is still here, still working, still surprising me, still finding Linda eventually, even if it occasionally needs a moment to locate a word or recall a name. That seems completely reasonable to me. So, what does your brain do now that it didn't do at 40? Funny answers are definitely always welcome, and real ones too. Both of those live here. I'd love for you to describe and keep telling me, because we're still becoming, and the brain is still very much in the conversation. I will see you next time.